You are a
Hey
little
everyone,
choppy though,
and we're live,
Pete.
and I probably am choppy. Yeah, it's a story of my audio woes, trying to get things to work through Twitch and OBS Ninja. But hey everyone, thanks for coming to IoT Live again. This is the second in a series of NVIDIA embedded Jetson Nano AI and ML at the Edge workshops, which is probably the longest title in the world. Which Paul DiCarlo is kindly here to help guide Cliff through his journey getting the NVIDIA Jetson up and running to be able to do some AI at the edge, which is awesome. So last week we managed to get the SDK installed, and then we modified some config files with the sort of the stock images that were pulled down, and we were able to recognize cars, bikes, and people. I think it was, wasn't it? To varying different degrees. And I think we
Yes.
said this week we would then train that model to be a little less broad, shall we say, because it was recognizing Cliff's keypad as a bike at one point, I think, wasn't it, and things like that. So I think this week we were going to look at training our own model. Maybe was it? I forget now exactly what you said we were going to do.
If we have time, which I think there's a good chance that we will. What we're going to focus on primarily today is taking sort of the concepts that we learned about the DeepStream SDK last week, which is that intelligent video application pipeline framework, and modifying that essentially to instead run as an IoT Edge workload, meaning we're going to be able to capture telemetry and push that in the Microsoft Azure. And depending on how fast that we can get that instrumented up and running, we can start to look at the possibility of training a model that uses our own sandwiches. So something that we can maybe modify to our own benefit for detecting whatever.
I like the sound of that.
Cool.
That sounds good. So I don't know if you wanted to kick off just by showing where we got to last week, or if you just wanted to carry on regardless. And
That downside of that is I've blown a new image onto the SD card since last week. So yeah, that stuff's not there anymore because I was
Isn't it?
trying to be clever and sort it all out and end up causing more problems. And I've only just got it back working again. Mainly because I've been too busy and run out of time. So I was planning to do it this morning, but I was giving a talk to fellow MVPs in the UK and Ireland, so it didn't work out as I planned.
That was good. So you've not got the original SD card from last week. You've overwritten that with something.
I've overwritten it. Yeah. Well, actually, I do still have it. It's here, but it doesn't want to work.
Right.
So I've got a version because I was messing around with it, and I think I broke it. So hence it's no longer there. And I was planning to fix it and quickly go over and redo the bits that we did last week, but I didn't get time between my chat and this chat. So
right. Well, from what Paul was saying,
people.
it doesn't sound like that's a problem because we're on about reworking this entirely to use Edge workloads, Docker, and that sort of stuff anyway, aren't we? So perhaps doesn't matter.
Yes, yeah, it's not going to matter because essentially what we'll be doing today is everything but in a different way. So you're not going to need the SDK installed on your host because instead we're going to pull it down as a container. And yeah, you should be totally fine starting from scratch. In fact, maybe it'll be a benefit just from knowing that we're starting from a clean slate in that regard. And just so we can get everybody on the same page, I have gone ahead and shared a link here to Pete, who should share that out to our viewers. What we'll be following here, so if you can see my screen,
hold on,
is this intelligent video analytics with NVIDIA Jetson and Microsoft Azure GitHub project. So that link should be popped into the chat shortly. And essentially what we did last week, if you sort of go through this, like what is this project? It is a repository that demonstrates a full end-to-end architecture for doing intelligent video analytics with NVIDIA embedded hardware in conjunction with Microsoft Azure IoT services. And so where we sort of finished last week was around here near the module 1. So we sort of introduced what is DeepStream. At the very end of that, Cliff was able to set up a custom configuration that leveraged using a webcam, using one of the models that was sort of brought in as part of the stock SDK. What we'll do today is sort of look at configuring and deploying intelligent video analytics to IoT Edge, which is a runtime service that can run on embedded devices. And we're going to then instrument that. And hopefully at some point, depending on just how much progress we make, there could be certain headwinds that we're just not aware of yet. We should be able to get down into at least the theory and idea, if not the application and implementation of developing and deploying a custom vision model. So we'll train our own model and make it detect things that we want. So with that said, where we would want to start, and this wouldn't be a bad idea, Cliff, to follow along here, is heading over to that intelligent video analytics repo. Probably do this from the Jetson if possible, because there might be some benefits to cutting and pasting things in the terminal from there.
I've stuck you in the screen sharing now, Cliff, so everyone can see what you're doing on the Jetson. I've also put the link in the chat, and it's also on the screen at the moment for everyone to see.
It's not connected. It's dropped off because it's trying to connect to my hold on. Yeah, this has not worked, has it? I've missed off plugging in the important bit.
What have you got? A Wi-Fi dongle.
The Wi-Fi dongle. Yeah.
That's all right. That's fine. No, while Cliff's faffing, did you want to say a bit more about what we're doing there, Paul? Or if I switch back to your screen sharing, what is it that we're going to do?
Yeah, sure. So what we're going to do is jump into Module 2, which will essentially consist of us introducing a little bit what is IoT Edge, installing that onto the device, and from there we're going to issue it a deployment. And that deployment will actually contain quite a few different things that do various different tasks. We could start to give a little bit of background there. In fact, why not just start with talking about what is IoT Edge? So this is essentially a runtime that will allow us to orchestrate containerized workloads that are defined in the cloud that can be shipped down to our device. And there is a lot of benefits to doing things that way. Number one, the runtime can do things like ensure its uptime, also has store and forward capabilities, meaning that it can produce telemetry that if there's absence of an internet connection for whatever reason, you're off at sea, you're flying a little bit too high, you forgot to Wi-Fi dongle or whatever, it can still generate those and then push those into the cloud where your connection resumes. So it's kind of cool. Also, the fact that these workloads run as containers, you get all the benefits of just containerization in general. So let's say that you're issuing an update to a device and you've only changed a top level layer in your container. You don't necessarily have to incur the full hit of downloading in a large container. You only would download the differing layer pieces at that point. So it can allow for a bit more streamlined deployment. Also, containers obviously give you nice things like logging and really easy abilities to restart them in the case that for whatever reason there's an exception that occurs in one of those processes. Now, going through what the actual containers or workloads are, we'll sort of explain those real quick. And this will also help give you a better idea around what is IoT Edge as we go into that. So the first thing that in IoT Edge deployment will have is this thing called the Edge Agent. And that is a system module used by IoT Edge that will allow it to ensure the uptime and essentially health of modules that are defined in your deployment, technically based on how you tell it to respond to those. So you can tell it, if things fail, never restart them or always restart them. Similarly, it looks to an associated Azure IoT Hub where it can pull down and assign deployment for a device. So when it wakes up, it communicates with Microsoft Azure And if there is a deployment ready for that device, it will then tell it, which will kick off the Docker pull, essentially, command to bring that down. The second module is also a system module that is part of every deployment and is interesting in two ways. Number one, it is what actually brokers, it is the, if you want to think about it, it is something that can be configured to either use MQP, MQTT, or HTTPS to push telemetry messages back to an IoT hub, which is an Azure IoT service that can ingest messages in a high throughput, secure way. What I mean by that is like up to 1 million events per second, and of course in such a way that you're not exposing clear text over the wire. But it does something else really interesting. It can allow for module to module communication. So you could sort of think about this like inter-process communication, except the way that it accomplishes this is by sending MQTT based messages across the wire from one module to another. And if you're wondering, well, how does a module know that a message is coming? So it implements the IoT SDK. There are handlers that are able to listen for and receive and respond to those messages. So a good example of this would be that you have a temperature sensor that's reading data, and perhaps something that uses stream analytics, which we'll talk about a little bit later, to process those telemetry readings over time and then submit a summarized result. So think about it like this. You could use the Edge Hub to have an intermodule communication from your temperature sensor to stream analytics module. Theoretically, that temperature sensor could be reading every second, maybe even multiple times per second. And that's a lot of data. You might not want to send all of that to the cloud. But what you could do is locally process that using this messaging system so that only the local services see this, operate on them locally, and then define what we call a route from, say, the streaming analytics module to push that result to the cloud. And in fact, what I've kind of described here in a simplistic way, you will see more or less implemented here in this full deployment. Instead of using a temperature sensor, we will use object detection readings, which will be happening 30 times per second, and we'll filter those out over a 15-second period using a flattening function, which we'll go into a little more detail on hopefully when we get there. There is also probably the most important thing that we'll be using today is this concept of the NVIDIA Deep Stream SDK, however, in a containerized or IoT Edge module form. And what this more or less is Deep Stream itself running as a container. How it accomplishes that is that it's spun up with certain parameters that allow it to map to certain shared objects that would be baked into the NVIDIA Jetpack operating system. So it's actually a little bit more lightweight than pulling down a full SDK because it does mount in some of those things. But it is a bit sizable. We'll see how large that is later today when we pull it, because I know versions have changed over time, but possibly in the order of a couple gigs. We also include something here, and I don't know that we'll have time. It's just part of this deployment, so we're just going to take it for what it is. And for those of you who do get inspired just by seeing what we do today and you want to take this further, we're going to include something called a camera tagging module. And this will allow you to configure it to set up a connection to an RTSP, real-time streaming protocol-based camera. And from there, you could use that to gather samples from your own environment. And this is in conjunction with this Azure Blob storage module. And what that does is allows you to capture samples, save them locally on the device, and with the potential to mirror those to, say, an Azure storage if you wanted to store those offsite. And this works in a really cool way because it also can effectively work in that store and forward type way that I described, meaning if there's no internet connection, it will store the images locally until it gets an internet connection. And you can even configure it in such a way that once those images are pushed to the cloud, to free up storage space on your device. So it's kind of cool. It's think about it like it's almost like an rsync type protocol for storing data. And finally, what I alluded to a little bit earlier, this last module that I have highlighted here on the screen is the Deep Stream Analytics module, which is really a stream analytics job that normally run in the cloud. Except what's really cool about Azure IoT Edge in general is that a lot of our bread and butter Azure services, not just IoT ones, so things like Azure Functions, Azure ML projects, Stream Analytics in this case, can be exported as jobs that run locally on the device. So this will be able to perform the same advanced time processing features that you would see in T-SQL, except it's going to execute those locally, which is pretty neat from
quite powerful
functional perspective. So yeah, and that's the thing, you literally get the same stuff that you're familiar with, and that's the cool thing. If you already have this skill from building some sort of a cloud service, it transfers one-to-one down to doing it on the edge.
Very cool.
So what we'll do to get started, I think that gives us a good baseline on like what we're going to deploy. There's obviously a lot of things you can do with this once you get there. We'll go ahead and get started.
We're back to.
So we'll shift over to Cliff's screen, which should be.
That's where we are.
Which should be right now on module 1. But what we want to do there, Cliff, is back up. We're going to start at module 2.
This is module 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. You are on.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. I saw that screenshot was for a reason confused. If you scroll up just a little bit, we'll first talk about some of the prerequisites you'll need in order to accomplish this. So right there, right underneath that Deep Stream Analytics part, if we can sort of scroll right under that table, it's going to tell us what we need to deploy this workload, which is essentially an Azure IoT Hub and an Azure Storage account. That's about it. The only other service that's going to incur some pricing is the Azure Stream Analytics job. However, it is a rather inexpensive service, all things considered. We'll also look at, we'll use Custom Vision AI if we're able to get there. And we'll go into probably more detail in the actual based on analytics on the edge, but we'll try to cover that to some degree today. So what we'll do on 2.1, start with the prerequisites for instrumenting your Jetson Nano device with the IoT Edge runtime. So the first step that we're going to do, which you'll want to open up a terminal window for, is we'll install a simplified text editor. Now, for folks out there who are like totally chill with VI or Vim, go ahead, use that. The thing is, I know there's a lot of folks, myself included sometimes, who just don't want to think, and you want to work like you're working in Microsoft Word and press up, down arrow keys, and it actually goes up and down. So we're going to use Nano to sort of simplify the process. So funny enough, Jetson Nano does not come with Nano pre-installed. They're different. Nano in this case is referring to I guess the easiest way to say it is a simplified text editor that kind of gives you what you want.
I like it. It's quite powerful.
So we'll wait just a moment here.
I mean, we could you could use VS Code now, of course, quite easily. But I mean, that's going to be a bigger package. But for the Nano, I guess that's not a great problem at all. So
I just realised I can just copy it.
Yeah, that's new. That's been added recently.
That's actually a point, Pete.
Should we do that instead?
And I'm sort of tempted.
I reckon.
Do we want to use V
Yeah.
code?
Um,
Steps.
do Nano anyway, Cliff. But I don't see any reason why we couldn't use VS Code. I mean, we're not a Raspberry Pi Zero, so I mean this should be plenty powerful enough and look a lot better.
You can remember my password eventually.
Yeah. What's the sudo apt-get for VS Code on? Is this 64-bit Linux that we're running here, or is it 32-bit? I don't know.
Must be 64 because it's got ARM 64.
Is ARM
Okay, so the ARM64 VS Code apt-get. Let's have a look.
okay? So we probably now that I'm saying it out loud, let me remind us why you don't want to do that, especially on a live stream.
Okay.
Because
The
it'll go wrong? Is that what you're saying?
NVIDIA Nano device.
Sorry, say that again.
No. The NVIDIA Nano device can totally run VS Code, but the second we start doing that in conjunction with having these deep stream workloads running, you will top out the memory on the device.
Oh, really?
And things will lock up simply because in that editor. In fact, oh yeah. Not to say that you couldn't like stop IoT Edge, then do some work in code and come back.
Yeah.
And I get that this isn't the greatest advertisement for this, but because you're on a 2 gig nano, Cliff, I've experienced slowdown on the 4 gig.
Right.
So I really am hesitant to want to try that now. But it's a good point to bring up, Pete. And for folks at home, definitely if try this and you do experience some or no slowdown, let us know, because the last time I'd experimented with this, it was not as smooth as I would have preferred.
That's surprising. But did you have quite a lot of extensions installed on there, Paul, or was it vanilla VS Code?
It's not so much vanilla. It's not so much the extensions that cause this. It's the baseline just opening VS Code, the amount of RAM that's going to consume, combined with as soon as that runtime starts, it starts spinning up its services. There's not really anything left over. In fact, what we can do later as an experiment is once we get the IoT Edge going, let's look at the free memory on the device, and it'll point you to the clue as to why this doesn't work. Now, if you have the beefier devices like the Xavier or the Xavier NX, you can run this like it's on your desktop. It's totally chill. What I would suggest, though, if you really wanted a tight dev loop using VS Code and some interaction with an embedded device, is leverage the remote feature for remote development on your device using VS Code. That can allow you to offset some of that processing power to the host machine, and then you're not having to incur the full RAM cost there.
Cool. I've just switched to a different headset, by the way, Paul. I don't know if that's helped.
Thing will do.
Did the next step because
it seems like you've done
it. It says, "Do you want to continue at the bottom?" And then it says abort after it. So hopefully it did what it needed to do, and it was aborting out of something. But the very last line.
That doesn't look good.
That's interesting. Hit up, and let's try that again. Whatever that last command was.
It was IoT Edge. It's trying to install. Do you want to continue? I'll stop by 25 meg of additional space be used. Yes, I do want to continue. Right, worked that time. Okay.
Glitch.
Capit is a white space character, and that's
possibly
what it accidentally done is didn't detect a Y or an N and probably aborted there.
Yeah.
So what Cliff has just done here for folks following along, he has copied in essentially the step of installing the IoT Edge runtime, which all pulling down the official package list from Microsoft that delivers this for Ubuntu-based systems, adding the appropriate source list, then adding the proper GPG keys. And once you've done that, you can simply do, just as Cliff has shown here, an app to install IoT Edge. Now, if you go back to your screen, it's going to give you some interesting messages here. It says, importantly, update your configuration file. So if you sort of scroll up a little bit higher, you should see that.
Yep.
And it tells us that configuration file is located in the path /etc/IoT Edge /config.yaml. And what this is the part of the configuration for our Azure IoT Edge device. Now, this is going to be interesting because we'll now need to set up some Azure services in order to it's not really a chicken egg problem. It is one must certainly exist before the other. And it is not ambiguous. So we're going to head over to we'll head on over
Got
to
two keyboards.
You could do this on the Windows side if preferred.
Yeah, it might be easier to do this in the Windows side.
You could do this on the Windows.
Don't know how easy that
shouldn't matter.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can share that window instead. Well, it's down there. You're sharing your whole screen anyway, aren't you, Cliff? So yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. There you go.
Paul and I can do this part in our sleep, of course.
And so,
just going to move that keyboard over and yeah, swap mouse, and I'm ready.
And so what we'll do, there's a couple ways in this times being IoT MVPs. We will create an IoT hub, and we'll register an IoT Edge device in that hub. So we will create one of these high ingestion throughput services within Azure, and then we'll create an entry essentially that will allow us to securely connect that device to the IoT hub. So that was fast. And once the hub is created, we will create a new wait for that hub to finish it. Give that a moment. And so if you're following along with what Cliff is doing, he's gone to the Azure portal. He has created a new resource known as an IoT hub, specifying the region where that will go, giving it a name.
Someone's already got NVIDIA IoT hub.
Oh, probably Paul.
It's not me. Johnny. It's Johnny, probably.
Yeah,
it's got to be Johnny.
There you
go. Could be. And just to point out here for folks who might be wondering, well, like, what is this going to cost me? You could use a free tier IoT hub in this particular use case. And the reason why I say that is the free tier gives you 8,000 messages per day, and we will be sending messages every 15 seconds. If you divide the number of seconds in a day by, what would that be, 4 per minute, it's less than 8,000. So it'll certainly be far less.
Because you're not going to run it for 24 hours, are you? You're going to be
over here. Sorry, like this is.
If you're doing the AZ220 exam, by the way, you need to be able to do this math. So it's 5,760 messages. Yep, 5,760 is the answer to that question. But for those studying AZ220, are we sending messages that are greater than half a K?
IoTeaLive over here.
Your stream is really choppy today, Paul. You're lagging badly for some reason. Not quite sure.
That's the other thing to think too. Is
he's not hearing us either.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
it's really like you seem to hear us about 10 seconds after we've spoken. It's and you're really choppy as well. Weirdly, I don't know why that is.
You keep freezing as well.
Yeah. Very odd.
Yikes!
Somebody's
Let me
mining
close my
Bitcoin.
screen share. That helps.
Might help a bit. Yeah.
We're still deploying anyway. So
is that better? I've canceled my screen share.
Yeah. Well, the
seems to be at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, there we are. That's disappeared now. So let's see. We'll see. You see, this is we talked about this last week, didn't we? About the your life choices in broadband selection perhaps need a bit of a review.
Yes. Well, I like this too. OBS Ninja is telling me right now that I'm having 1.5 meg of upload, whereas before when I had 2 windows open, it was like, oh, now it's 2 megs. I should be a lot clearer.
Yeah, that might be better.
Yeah, you are much better.
Yeah.
No more screen sharing. You know what it is? It's because when I screen share, I'm screen sharing a completely different resolution, so that's causing contention. Because one screen is yep, that's what it is. That's what it's been this whole time. Sorry, everyone, up to this point. I just won't share my screen. That's easy.
All right,
chill.
Cool.
Anyways, my point was, I think I was trying to say earlier, it is literally IoTeaLive over here. I woke up with a cup of tea, iced tea, and it's 8:30 in the morning over here, which is
man, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me. I don't mind getting up. I'm just saying, like, I don't normally wake up and live stream at 8:30.
No.
I did it last week at 6:30 in Seattle.
Oh, that's true.
But my
You're
body was
no.
my body was in UK time, so you know.
That was what I was going to ask. When you go there, do you do like the Formula One drivers do when they go to places like Singapore and just stay in UK time, or do you not going to have time to adapt? Are you?
Go to sleep when I'm tired and eat when I'm hungry.
Yeah, that would be all the time for me.
Yeah.
I'd just be constantly eating and sleeping if that was the case.
Yeah.
It probably just about is. Normally at this time of day, I'd have a little nap as well at 2 p.m. So you know, this keeps me out of bed. Yeah, it's good. Well, I mean, I work till midnight most days, so my work-life balance is all upside down.
So what we're waiting on here is Cliff has just deployed his IoT hub, but even though it's like ready and he's navigating it, it doesn't mean that it's fully ready. As in, there's still a few things that are provisioning in the background. You can sort of see where that red X is. It's sort of telling us.
I think it's fine though. I think if you go to IoT devices, I bet you can add your edge device.
Let's see.
And
I've noticed sometimes too, I have to do a full refresh to make the red X go away. But
that's why I did it a moment ago, but it didn't go. So we had an IoT edge device, or we?
Oh yeah, IoT edge device. Yeah.
Yeah.
Top left of the of the screen there. Yeah.
And you can name it whatever you want. I always name mine like what is the device and then give it a number. So like Jetson-Nano-00 or 01 or
just call it Jetson 01 at the moment.
There we go.
Leave it with symmetric keys. Okay, it's device enabled. That's all we need to do, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And so what Cliff's done there is basically created the entry in the IoT hub so that should something with the IoT Edge runtime connect using the credentials that this will create for us, it's allowed to go. So this is that secure connectivity in practice here. So if you go ahead and click on that new entry, Cliff, we should see your keys for this device.
Nicely obfuscated as well.
Yep, there we go.
Nicely obfuscated for the live stream, and we will park here for a sec because we're going to use that to modify the config YAML file that we just were told that we should probably modify. So we'll head back over to your terminal.
So it's made me panic earlier, but it's just gone to sleep.
And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it wasn't a bad idea to do this on the Nano.
On the Nano, I'm just thinking the same. Copy and pasting keys, yeah.
Well, we can shell into the Nano from the Windows side and copy paste from there.
Do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So where are we at now then?
Have you got Putty? Oh, you can do it from the terminal, but Putty's easier. But you can just SSH from. Yeah, there we are then.
Oh no, it's even easier from just the command prompt.
Yeah.
Depending on the version of Windows you have, just type SSH Clifford at device, and it should get you in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a cool feature. Windows has SSH.
Didn't know you could do that at the command line. That's cool.
My Raspberry
I always
Pi,
use Putty.
My Raspberry Pi remote debugging script makes good use of that SSH functionality in Windows 10 to be able to do that and then pull down stuff on the Pi. So exactly the same. You can do that too. We can't see that part of your screen now, by the way, Cliff. You're showing your camera view. There we are.
Yeah. SSH, was it?
Oh, yeah.
SSH Clifford at name of device or IP of device.
I'm not sure of the IP address. 1 minute.
ifconfig.
That keyboard, Cliff. Config.
Looks like that 19. That thing, yeah.
This keyboard 192 dots. There's one 82. No.
168 dot.
82.84.
It will ask you for a password shortly as well, so whether to keep your thing off the screen for now.
And just so y'all know, he's interacting with that shell window right now on the Windows side. And this will give us simplified copy abilities.
There we go. How cool is that? Actually? If you folks didn't know, SSH built into Windows 10 since 20H2, I think, or maybe even before that. Since WSL was incorporated, so it might be before 20H2 even.
I did not know that existed. That is, I always fire up Putty and get annoyed because Putty, when the connection drops, it closes Putty, doesn't it? You have to open it again.
Yeah.
Whereas this would be much better. You can just push the up arrow and hit enter, and you're back again.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Putty still has its place, especially if you're doing like, you want to specify baud rate speed or talk to devices over FTDI. But for your shell over a network, not about it. Just open your CMD and go to town.
I think Control V might even work. I'm not sure.
So if you did this from PowerShell, it would work as well, same exact way, which is super cool. So now what we'll do, and you'll notice that this command requires the use of sudo. So we'll execute essentially as a privileged user to be able to modify this file. And the reason why is because that file is important. It is not given any normal user access rights. So you will need to use sudo for that one.
I'm guessing too that I know from just doing regular Docker stuff that if you want to interact with any of the GPIO or any of the hardware on the device, you have to run as an elevated Docker image, don't you? So I'm guessing part of it might be that too.
Not necessarily. So actually, the way that this deployment is going to work, I do believe all of our workloads will not be running as privileged users.
Okay, interesting.
Yes, and part of that is because the Docker version that we're technically using is an NVIDIA-based version of Docker that knows how to mount in the hardware for us. So, but yes, you make a good point. The old way of doing that with the vanilla Docker, you would have to do that, but this does it in a bit more secure way. So now you are in the heart of the beast, that is the IoT Edge config file. And what we're going to do is go down to the section where it says provisioning manual. And there are a number of ways to configure devices. We are doing this the easiest way, which is a manual configuration, meaning we're literally going to plug in a key. And it sort of tells you exactly where to do that. But if you're curious, there are other attestation mechanisms below that can allow you to do things like use our device provisioning service, which will more or less automate the ability for you to register devices. So like devices can just literally wake up, talk to an associated, what we call DPS instance, device provisioning service, and securely authenticate in that way without an explicit key, which is pretty cool.
I've taken you off screen share just while you paste that, just so that we don't leak that. So when you as soon as you move that off the screen, I'll put your screen share back on.
Yep. Well, it's the end of the keys off screen.
Oh, yes, so fine. Yeah, no one can see that. Yep. There we go. Cool.
Yeah, that looks good. You should be able to hit Control X then and save.
Yep.
Now, one thing to pay attention to, what we were just modifying, was a YAML file. And I see all the time that people either assume they can just backspace things, like white space characters in YAML indicate scope, which is a terrible idea in my opinion. That is one of those hills I will die on.
Like Python.
I'll be there fighting with you.
One of the only opinions I have with regards to programming, that's one of the top ones there, is because what happens, especially for newbies, is you'll be like, well, where's the problem? Everything looks right, and it's a white space character. God forbid you use some sort of an esoteric white space character that isn't a space or a tab, and you have no idea what it is. So just keep that in mind. Keep these things intact. But now what we're going to do is the litmus test of, did we paste this in right? So, and this is where you will find out that you may have added a white space character or not. I don't think you did, but for folks out there, this is a very good like troubleshooting point, just in case you're following along. So we will restart the IoT Edge runtime with the command sudo space service space IoT Edge space restart. And this will effectively cause it to restart, pull the new configuration that we just modified. And if we watch its status or logs, we can determine whether there is a configuration error. But if there's not one, then what we have done in just these few steps in a few minutes is securely installed and configured a device to connect to an IoT hub, at least register with one. And what that gives us at this current point in time is the ability to start targeting it with deployments. So now that you've restarted, and we'll give it a few seconds, the first thing we'll do is look at the status. So we can do systemctl space status IoT Edge. And by the way, all of these commands are coming from the GitHub module. I'm sort of reading these off. And cross your fingers. That's good. It's not only up, it's pulling the Edge agent. So
that's his last, yeah, so that's what he's done so far. That's, yeah, it's busy pulling down and abusing my phone.
And what is, so pop quiz for everybody in the chat. What is the IoT Edge agent? What does it do? What is its most important piece? I mean, it probably does a lot of things, but what is the most important thing that we mentioned earlier?
AZ220 question, that.
Yeah. I've not done the Edge stuff yet, but
so Edge agent and Edge hub. They're the two different parts there, and then modules are going to run on top of those two things. And Paul's asking,
I suppose the agent is just orchestrating it all, isn't it? It's putting it all together and sitting there and making sure it's connected to IoT Hub and holding that connection open.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, it's ensuring the uptime and applying the deployment. So yeah, it is an orchestrator essentially. At the end of the day, the next thing we can do, just for fun, this is a good command to know, is using journalctl. In fact, I know I have, like in the example, I use the no pager and no fool options. Do journalctl-u space IoT Edge will give us the journalctl logs for IoT Edge, which is good to know. This is a very verbose command that's using system level logging on the Linux side. And the reason why this is a good command is if you ever really don't know why something is working, this can go into a bit more details in terms of why. So yeah, if you do -u space IoT Edge, after that, it should should give us all journal CTL entries for the IoT Edge user. And so, interesting. So you could see when this thing started earlier,
yeah,
it said it could not load settings, and that was previously to us modifying the config. But if you look down,
you can see kind of there, it's gone from 25 past to 42, which is the current time, or a couple of minutes ago. So that's when it restarted. So you can see it's restarted there, and then down at the bottom, it's finished stopping modules.
So there you have it. These are good tools. We've verified that there were no white space characters in the config. So we're in a really good place here. Now, two other things to look at would be the pseudo IoT Edge list. And one thing I like to use a lot is the Docker PS command.
PSA.
Now, some folks will say, well, wait a minute. Because if you try both of these.
So which one do you want me to use? Sudo?
The first one we'll use is sudo space IoT Edge list.
I'll get a list of the,
And that should tell you what modules are employed, which at this case, since we haven't really
just the Edge agent
deployment, just has the Edge agent. Now, if you do a sudo docker ps, the output's going to look really similar. And this is an interesting thing just to state here. Personally, I come from the Docker world, and I know that IoT Edge works via it's technically using a Docker compatible API to orchestrate its workloads. And so when I look at things and want to check them, I more often than not actually use the Docker commands that I'm familiar with. Although some people, depending on who you're talking to from Microsoft, might disagree and say, well, why not use the IoT Edge command? Well, I'll tell you why. The IoT Edge command doesn't give me nearly as much data. It doesn't tell me the container ID. It doesn't tell me what commands it was kicked off with. It doesn't tell me the open ports. And similarly, if you do a Docker PS space -a, it's going to give you the same details now, but that is a great command because it will not only show you running containers, it will show you containers that are in some sort of a faulted state, which is very useful, especially when we configure DeepStream to see, is that thing really running? And it'll tell us why, usually, or at least give us the container ID so we can shift to the logs and things like that.
For the AZ220 exam, by the way, you are definitely going to need to know those IoT Edge rather than the Docker commands. But I fully agree with Paul. Whenever I'm doing any IoT Edge stuff, I'm nearly always using the Docker commands. Like Paul says, it's a fully Docker compatible. But you can use Docker, but it's not supported in production, which will be another interesting part to AZ220. You may find a question which involves that.
That's right. We only officially support Moby, which can be thought of as the open source version of Docker.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to think about that, the open source components. So now what we're going to do is start to configure our device so that it can be ready to receive a sample configuration. Now, for those of you who have played with containers before, you probably realize that there are things like volume mounts and bind mounts. What that means is that we can map into a container process a directory or file path that exists on the host. Why is that important? Because the containerized process can now work with a persistent storage on the same system. So where this becomes useful is, say you want to throw a configuration to a container. It's nice to have that stored on the host side, because if that container gets blown away, the configuration gets blown away with it. So the very first thing that we're going to do is create a directory. So we'll do the sudo make dir-p /data/miss/storage. So probably want to copy paste this one from
is it in oh yeah, got it.
from the, you'll want to probably copy paste it from the repo just to make sure that you get everything you need. Now, once you've created that directory, the next thing we'll do is chmod-r, and we're going to use 777 permissions because that means that we're not going to screw anything up. However, it's probably more, and this is also what's in our documentation, and the reason I chose this is because it removes, like if somebody has an issue with this, it removes the concept of it being a permissions issue, but 755 would probably get you away here too. Then what we're doing is seeding into that storage directory and cloning this exact repo. Now, the reason why we are doing that is if you were to look at the file structure of this repo, there is a directory. Well, there's actually a lot of directories that this thing comes with. And inside of them, you have this folder called services. Now, those services are going to get referenced by our configuration. And this is going to look weird now, but like, and I don't know, my thinking at the time was to put each of these services in the separate capitalized folders. So it's very clear, like this is where those things get configured. And what we're going to do in just a moment, if you click into the deep stream folder, there are a number of configurations in there that, again, will reference out to other folders on here. You can click on configs. And these are going to look sort of like what we looked at last week. So, but there's different flavors. So like things that use YOLO v3, things that use YOLO v3 Tiny, things that use a custom vision deployment. In fact, our default deployment uses custom vision AI. Because you clone that repo, those configs are now on your host system and can be used by a containerized version of the DeepStream SDK. Said a lot.
Did you make all these then, Paul?
Yes.
Or have you just copied them in? Okay.
And cool. What's nice here too is it's going to give us some leverage to modify and change. So after that git clone step, we're going to do something a little odd here. I alluded to this being painful last week. So we're going to issue this command xhost local IoT edge. And what that gives us is access for the IoT edge user, which was created when we installed the IoT edge runtime. So you might not realize this, but part of that installation created a user called IoT edge. That user will run all of the containerized workloads and is not like a super user or anything like that. It needs to have access to the X11 socket on the device in order for us to use any configuration that deploys an EGL sync, if you remember that from last week. So EGL syncs are an output window format that has minimize, maximize, and close buttons. So if that part rings a bell.
Yep.
And if the container does not have access to X11, which is the windowing service on Linux, the thing that is drawing the windows that you're interacting with, if it does not have access to that, the container will die immediately because they'll be like, can't get an X11 socket. So that is the first step. What that just gave you is that in this current session, IoT Edge has access to the X11 socket. However, we need this to persist. And there is probably a better way to do this, but the way that I found that worked is, and that cannot enable open display is expected. That is expected output there.
Yeah, it's where to show it.
So now what we'll do is sudo nano/etc/profile. And what this is going to do is modify the default session profile for any time that you SSH into this device or log into this device. We're going to force it to also run the xhost local IoT edge command. So we'll go ahead and modify that. Now, you might be wondering, what do I mean when I say profile? This is when you start a session in Linux via, the login with from a GUI with your password or shell into it, the profile will execute as soon as you've done that. So this is a nice way to intercept anytime someone logs in give them X11 permissions at the start, or at the start of when this device even boots. In fact, this will run. So I shouldn't say that you have to log in necessarily. Even when the device boots, this will execute. And what you'll do is at the very top of that file, you'll type the same command. And so whereas us doing that on the terminal a moment ago gave us X11 permissions for this session, this will give us persistent X11 permissions on every reboot. So make your life easier. Now, the other thing I like to do is give user permissions to Docker for your current user. And so there's a command for that, sudo user mod -ag, which means modify user to add them to the group Docker. And then we use the $user alias there. We'll add your current user Clifford to the Docker group. And if you do that again in this session here, do it in this terminal window as well. I'm trying to think. You might have to respawn a new session. But from here on out, you never have to type sudo in order to use your Docker commands, because you've added your regular user to the Docker group. So this might not work just yet, but if you typed exit and opened a new terminal, it should. But just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, on subsequent login sessions, you will now be able to invoke Docker commands without the need to prepend with sudo. Now, this next part is gonna be a little bit tricky and difficult. We don't necessarily have to do this, but I want to set you up for success, especially if you want to continue with the later modules. Now, on this side, I recommend that we do this on the Windows world, because you'll have access to VS Code, etc. So this next series of steps, we will use VS Code. And even in the workshop, we say preferably running on a dev machine that is not the Jetson device. Why do I say that? Because, again, we might run out of resources based on whatever.
Yeah, so I just opened a new terminal and went back in there, Paul. You can see obviously it's worked because it's got Xhost and now it displays. It's obviously used that that new profile to log in and get it working.
Excellent.
So,
excellent. So we'll head over to the Windows side, and it's going to feel like we're repeating ourselves here, because we're going to git clone the repo again. And we're going to build out our deployment. This should not take, let's take an ETA here. If we have an hour, I'm a little nervous that we'll get to customizing the model, but you never know. You know? I feel like we have 30 minutes or so to get this part done.
Yep. And we want to clone that. There you go. So I was just doing it off screen while I was making some directories.
Okay, doke.
There you go.
And then once you've cloned that, let's open that in VS Code. So it'll make life super easy.
Yep. I really like the fact you can just type code dot and it opens the folder. Or you can, like, start dot and it opens Explorer. I'd love there to be a Visual Studio one like VS dot and it does it for you. And I know you can do it in Path and stuff like that, but I'd like it to be like just built in. Part of Visual Studio installer is it creates a, you know, one for you, the path and everything else. But
that's a cool idea.
I've suggested it, but you know, like code dot and it's opening Visual Studio for me, or VS Code.
You know what the problem might be? Why they're hesitant to do that? I'm thinking about this. Remember the Visual Studio Codes version selector? Oh. I guess if it opened the selector, then that would be okay, right? But I'm wondering if that's not the hesitation, is it doesn't know what version of Visual Studio to actually open in that case.
Well, yeah, maybe you could set a default somewhere.
Agree.
Don't know, or it's VS. You do VS19. That means that version of Visual Studio instead of the. I don't know. But it's got to be a way. It's not It's not massive, is
Oh,
it?
that's some good feedback. I mean, it's just a damn alias.
Exactly. That's all it is. So there we go.
Make your own. Make your own. Okay, so we are in the VS Code now, and what we're going to do is create a file inside of this directory called .env.
There you go. And would you call it, sorry, .env?
Yes. And the reason I don't ship an env file is because if you ever do, it's a bad idea because someone might accidentally check in a .env file, etc. So I ship without them and tell people to create them. I don't know if that's the best practice. If someone has a better idea in the chat, please let me know. But anytime there is a .env involved in a IoT Edge project, I always, and I want people to reproduce it, I never ship with one. So y'all let me know if I'm thinking correctly there. But my fear is that someone will send me a pull request and I won't see that they also modified the .env file, and now I just published your key. Like that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
So you'll see here there are some values we need to figure out. This container registry name, local storage key, and cloud storage connection. Now, we can skip the container registry name because we're not going to use a Azure container registry in this point. But what we're going to do for local storage account key, apparently this is what our docs say. So this must be a safe website. We will go off to this generate plus website that totally is going to generate a base 64 key for you and totally not stored.
So we're here, and you're on about this generate plus one, yeah?
Yes.
There you go.
And this key is totally chill if people see it, by the way, because it only ever gets used locally on your device. Someone would have to hack your network, hack into your device, and then use that key. So, like, don't worry about this. You can also change it later if you prefer. But do not worry about this. I knew that sounds weird to say, like, yeah, this is totally a key, but it's totally fine if someone sees this because the likelihood of them being able to do anything with it is nil, and the worst damage they'll be able to do is upload images to your Azure storage account. So bravo if they do.
So
now
so that goes in there.
Yes. We'll keep local storage account name as is. Now, destination storage account, we can also keep as is, but is supplied based on an assumed naming convention for something you're about to do. So you will create a storage name, hopefully with that same name. So we'll go ahead and follow these steps. We are going to create a new blob storage service by heading back over to the marketplace.
Your dog.
He got a little bit of a kennel cough, I think, after being boarded this weekend. Unfortunately, it's subsiding, but thank gosh that's all we heard today. You should have heard it years ago. He's got this deep voice, Pete. It sounds like it doesn't sound like a dog. It sounds like
feed me.
What did I call it earlier? That one there.
Cliff, can you control plus your browser window a couple of times? Or whatever you need to do.
Maybe not many.
Yeah, not too many times. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Yeah, excellent. Generally, it'd be okay, but OBS Ninja screen sharing is rubbish at best. So,
do you want me to give the storage account name?
The name can be anything. So you could call it storage, camera storage or something. Yeah, that can be anything. It's the container, not to be confused with Docker container. I mean storage container. That we'll want to give a specific name to.
That one to do. UK West will do.
Did somebody take that name too?
I always put my initials and then a dash at the start. And
I don't like your dash.
I put a dash in there and I shouldn't have done. Oh, it's only lowercase as well, isn't it?
Why is that a restriction? If it's all lowercase, then just lowercase force the text box.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a HTML tag, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you have a white space, maybe.
No, I think it's okay now. It's just it doesn't understand the spelling of what he's typed there.
Spelling. Yeah. I'm like, what is?
Yeah. It's Edge telling me I can't spell.
Every time I'm typing these things in, I'm like, wait, what? Why? Yeah. All my other things follow a way different naming convention, like camel case or hyphens. Give me this ability. Yeah. So you've created the storage account.
Yep.
And now we will open that up to look at the container as soon as it's done deploying.
Just realize I've got Teams open. Sorry, that's on the wrong screen. There you go.
Awesome. And we'll nav to that resource. Thank goodness for that go to resource button. I'll tell you what, sometimes you build things and you're like, what did I just build? Where is it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Now on a container, don't I?
I have this problem. So yeah, we'll create a container, and the container you absolutely want to name all lowercase camera tagging module cloud.
There you go.
And why
don't need anything else, do I?
Like if you think back to the parameters in that file, we have a local storage account we call camera tagging module local, and then we call the destination camera tagging module cloud. Makes some sense, I think. And then we will go ahead and grab the key for that container that you just created, or the connection string, I'm sorry, the full connection string.
It's in properties, isn't it?
Or is it access policy? Access policy.
Is it access policy? I thought it was in there.
Actually, I have told you the wrong thing. You get this from the storage account, not the storage.
Ah, yes. Not container you get from the account, do you? Yeah. Oh.
Well, where's that?
Type it in the search bar at the top. That's what you do. That's what I do. But that'll work. You see, if you'd have pinned all these things to your dashboard, it would be all on your dashboard by now. The special dashboard you created for this.
Yeah.
So you will grab the full connection string in this case, and
that's interesting. But
it's not got a
zoom out. Got a copy. Zoom back out again, Cliff. I think the zoom has ruined it for you. Now try scrolling across.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, it's not on there.
Oh, show keys, but I'll take you off screen. No, press the show keys.
I can do it over here.
Oh, okay. Nope.
Yeah, you can only copy it when. Oh, that's bad, isn't it? You can only copy it when it's shown.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll probably end up exposing this one. Or take him off screen.
Yep, he's back off screen. You're back off screen anyway, Cliff. So
he'll copy the key into there. Yeah. And then as long as you never open the env file again on the remainder of the stream, you should be fine.
You can put me back now because it's not showing the key.
You're back.
Okay.
There you go.
Make sure you hit Control S on that so that it is.
Just did that.
And this is going to get fun because we're close. So I bet you already have the Azure IoT Edge extension installed. I bet.
Yes. And
if you don't, you would install this extension. It's Control-Shift-P install. I think we actually talked about it earlier on. So what we'll do is hit Control-Shift-P, and because you already have this installed in VS Code, we will.
I'm in the wrong one.
There should be a option for set default target platform for IoT Edge solution. If you type set space default. default target
platform for
edge
that one there.
solution.
There you go.
And you will set this to ARM64 v8. Why would you do this? Because this will, when it generates deployments, it will spit them out in a format that should work on an ARM64 v8 compatible device, i.e. the Jetson.
And there you go.
Now, the next thing we will do is you're going to go back over to your Jetson, and we will hit up your terminal. And this command usually gives the right output, but I have seen cases or diagnosed things with people. Depends on what your device is plugged in, and it will tell you different things. Okay, like just keep this in mind. Like the only thing that this, like the only fragile house of cards that this whole deployment stands on, is the parameter we are about to discover and modify, which is the display number that your device is currently assigned. So you will do echo space $, all caps, display, which will output the current environment variable for your display, how you are actually seeing on your screen right now. And that should give you a number, :1 in this case.
Yep.
So a lot of people will get 0 here. It depends. And in fact, 1 might not really be the true number we want. We're about to find out. It's usually 0 or 1. I've seen a very bizarre instance where someone had one of these plugged into a projector and it gave them :10. So usually what this tells you is 90% of the time the right answer. If that's not the right answer, try :0. If that is not the right answer, then hit me up on LinkedIn and we'll chat about it. But this should work. Now what we're going to do is head into your VS Code on the Windows side, and keep in mind that that was :1. And we'll go back to the Windows side, and you can see a deployment.template.json file inside of the deployment IoT hub folder.
From IoT hub folder, and that one there.
And you will see there is a display variable somewhere. I think it's in the NVidia module. Yes. Scroll down a little bit further.
There you go.
There it is. Yep.
It's already set to :1. So we'll leave it as is for now, Cliff, but we will find out if that is true or not. I'm serious. The only issues I've ever had on this repo is that parameter. Is some people seem to get different values. I think it, and I really honestly do. I think it depends if it's plugged into a display port or whatever. It just gets assigned something differently. Now what we'll do is bring up your command palette, and we will use the IoT extension to select the IoT hub that we created earlier today.
What was that one called?
Cliff, use your Control and Plus in here as well. Just as I know you're using Zoom it really well, but if you just Control and Plus for me, then everything will just get a bit bigger.
How about that?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean you can sort of minimise away the Explorer on the left when you're done as well.
Yeah, I can.
Give it more space. But anyway, sorry to.
That's there you go.
Yep, and the output.
And I can get rid of that. And
Perfect.
what you're doing was doing.
We will use the select IoT hub.
There it
there
is.
you go. That one
Select.
there.
Yeah.
It's in the enterprise. There you go. There's only one there.
I've loved this functionality in code, by the way. The Azure
awesome.
integration works really well.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
now, because you did that, if you click over on the left where it has like the papers up in the top above the magnifying glass,
yep.
and you scroll down, you'll see there's that Azure IoT Hub section. And if you expand that, we see everything. I love this. I mean, for a tight depth,
it's awesome.
Yep.
You don't have to go back up to Azure. It's just there.
It's perfect.
You can have a fleet of devices there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And now what you will do is right-click. I'm trying to think. Is there something else you need to change? I don't think so. Sorry, you will right-click the JSON file. We need to do that first. We haven't generated the template yet. So we right-click. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, sorry, what one do you want to click? The deployment template JSON, yeah?
Yeah, but that's in the open editors. We want that in the expand that Jetson folder.
That one, yeah.
That's it.
There you go.
We
that
go.
one there.
That one, yeah.
And right-click there, and you should see. And this is only because you have the extension installed. Generate IoT Edge deployment manifest. Now, because we set the target platform to ARM64 v8, this will generate the ARM64 v8 flavor of this. So if you click on config in that directory, so it created a folder there called config. That it just created only exists because of what you just did.
Yep.
And now you can right-click that, and this is pretty awesome. Create deployment for single device. Choose your device. And that thing is going to get a deployment
cloud.
What's that then?
Why would it fail?
Property or tag name as invalid characters.
Which one?
Scroll across a bit further after that. Did it tell you which one? Local storage account name must not contain control characters.
Okay, what do I use as the local storage account name then?
That's going to come from the env file.
Oh yeah, be careful of the env file because I'll take you off screen while you check this, Cliff.
Local storage account name is what you set it as, camera tagging module local.
I agree. Do a delete on the very last character, just like know that we don't have something there.
Yep.
And try again. I'm trying to think, why would this not work?
It's possible that when you pasted it in, it pasted carriage return, the wrong carriage return there. I've seen that before, where it only wants line feed and you've got CRLF rather than LF.
Yes. Yeah, after that there, yeah.
Yeah, just do that with this destination storage name as well, just to be sure. I can't remember the third one down there, or fourth one rather, just to be sure as well. I've seen that before. You can actually turn it off. See where you've got CRLF down in the bottom? I've had to change that to just LF before, where it's done things like that, where it doesn't expect it. But give that a go now, see what that does. But
I need to generate the manifest again, don't I?
Probably not. I think it was all right, but
no, it needs to regenerate and then redeploy.
Oh, okay.
Because the generate pulls from the env file.
Ah, yeah, fair enough. Nope, same.
Okay, so there's a few things we can do for this. There's no control character though. And it's saying that is for the
local storage account name.
Give me 1 second. Why is that not working?
What does the internet say?
Yeah.
It could be the key. What did it generate for your local storage account key? I'm just curious. Maybe we got a weird character in that.
In the env file.
I've taken you off screen share, by the way. So you're all right in case you...
Yeah. Just uppercase, lowercase numbers and 2 equals at the ends, because obviously it's
fine.
base 64.
I mean, it's not something stupid like that name is too long or something, really, and it just doesn't... It's giving you a strange error. Because it's quite a long name you've given it.
Camera tagging module local. I don't know why this would be.
The only other thing I can suggest is, you see now that you're in that .json file, see, I'm going to put you back on screen share now, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just looking
LF,
at...
It's got LF as the ending type. But see on your end... But it shouldn't make any odds, but it may still make an odd. I don't know. I can't see why it would.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's change them both to LF and see what happens.
Yeah, you might need to save it and then it'll save it and it should strip out everything and do that as well just to be sure. This might not help either, but this is only the set thing I've seen where it looks like there's no problems.
There's another trick we can do here too. If this ENV is not working, we can always just plug the values in
direct
to the deployment template.
So I can delete that, can't I, if I needed to?
Yeah, that's not a
bad idea.
Yep, just to be sure.
And then
the weird thing is that it generated something.
I've never seen that before.
Same. So let's click. Yeah, try this. See if it just works.
There you go. No.
There's got something else.
Argument error.
Is this a different error?
It's not because I've called it Jetson. No, because that's the device name, isn't it?
Yeah. That's exact. Is it the exact same error?
Yeah. Invalid characters. Properly tag. Local storage account name. Must not contain control characters.
What does that look like?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Go back to what I think's happening here is it's not picking up the ENV file. And oh my gosh, it's definitely not picking up the ENV file because I think we have it in the wrong place. We put it at the top of the file. What we want to do is put it inside that folder.
Inside the deployment IoT hub.
Yes. There
we go.
Cool.
That was easy.
Cool error, by the way. That's a cool error. I'm glad we found this one.
Well, we learn from seeing it, don't we? So
yep. That's the whole point of doing these things live because anybody could come up against that. So
yeah.
My only excuse is I just haven't looked at this in a while.
Well,
I've never looked at it, so don't
Well, and you'll notice too the way, Pete, that I set up the structure on this is a bit unique because I have a folder for IoT Central and an IoT Hub deployment.
Yep.
And normally when you see an IoT Edge project, there's one set of deployments.
Yep.
This is like, and I just found that thankfully the plugin tooling does support that, but it does look at each folder as like a completely separate project. So this is good news. It's deployed. So now what we'll go ahead and do is head over to the Nano device, and I would do if we've started a new session, you should now be able to type Docker commands without sudo, I think. You should be able to do watch space Docker space PS space -A.
Oh.
Is it uppercase A, isn't it?
No.
Lower A.
Yeah.
Is it lowercase A?
Lower A, yeah. This is a cool command. Watch does whatever you tell it to. We need to start a new session. You can type sudo in front of this and it'll work.
I can just open another terminal, can't I?
Okay.
Yeah. I think our Docker permissions had not yet applied. Yeah, so you can open another terminal. But maybe the Docker commands will not work until you do a full reboot. I'm trying to remember. We're about to find out. Regardless, you can use sudo here if it doesn't work.
Yeah. So, right. Nope, you need to use it.
When you reboot, this will be gone because the user perms, I guess, execute at a lower level.
Did we add them to the profile rather than adding them to the current session? Is that what we did? And then the profile won't kick in until you reboot, like you've just said.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the profiles because we did user mod, and so when the system boots, so what you should see here is the Edge agent so far. Okay, this is going to eventually fill up, provided you get everything right. Another nice one to do here is because we know that this is the Edge agent, is do a Control C here to cancel this. Let's watch what Edge agent's doing because Edge agent's going to be busy for a minute. Do Docker space logs space -F, which means follow.
So space dash.
Docker logs -F.
I don't think there's a dash for log, is there? Or maybe there is. I can't remember.
There's not a dash for log. Sorry.
Right.
Oh,
logs, Docker logs dash chef, and then edge agent at the end of it, which is camel case, lowercase e, capital A. And if we see this, you should see what it's actually doing. So it's like creating the camera tagging module.
Wrong one.
So all of those modules that we showed earlier, it's going to pull all those. And I forget the exact sizes of these, but I think it's going to be in the gigabytes of data.
How's your unlimited data there, Cliff?
Yeah, I'm good. What is it? Yeah, in the repo, they're all like fairly large files: 200 meg, 2.6 gig, 700 meg, 600 meg, 200 meg. So yeah, it's obviously pulling those down as we speak.
What's that failed there? What's that complaining about?
Where are you seeing that?
Step failed in deployment. Is that earlier? Oh, that's earlier. That's 226. This is old. Oh no, you must be an hour out. Surely that's now. Is this in GMT rather than BST or something?
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, because it's got the GMT time on it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where are you seeing step failed in deployment 2, continue execution failure when running. Yeah.
Command. What was the command it was attempting? Oh, perhaps it can't create or start because
it's not
it hasn't finished pulling. Yeah. That's my guess. Another fun one you can do to know what its status is on the pulling is watch space Docker space images is another good one.
Yeah, sudo.
So it's pulling some stuff. It pulled down the 1.0 edge agent because for whatever reason that's what's specified in deployment on our repo. So you've downgraded to edge agent 1.0, and it should now start pulling the edge hub next. Which edge hub shouldn't take that long to pull.
Edge hub is, according to your repo, is 240 meg.
Yes.
So. Wrong one. So I waiting for that to download. Because you're not with us next week, Paul. Sorry. This repo here, we can just continue through. I mean, we're nearly at the end of this section 2, but we can continue through with section 3 and just carry on.
And it does get chiller, like once we get to section 3, etc.
Yeah.
Mind you, I don't.
And this is.
I may be able to find some time to help y'all. Was Johnny able to get enlisted here to help co-pilot?
I don't quite know what Johnny's doing. He had a loss in the family recently, so I've been trying not to put too much on him. But he may well be. It may be fine. But
it's very possible I could come back. Let's talk.
Back afterwards. Once again, like the Renegade Master.
Yes, he said that last night as well.
Yeah, probably did,
yeah. Tuesday night. So your 8-hour module course that you was talking about at the very beginning is literally these 5 modules going through these. I mean, we're what 3.5 hours in, and we're partway through module 2, Stu. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, being realistic, it's like 2 hours per module. Maybe it's 8 to 10 hours. I think the full recorded content comes out to about 8. But obviously there's different things we're talking about here today. All right, what is up with these images? What else do you have here? Let's see, did we get another one? I bet it's pulling the NVidia one. Oh, there we go. So we're getting more.
So we got blob storage. Yeah, they're coming down now.
Blob storage, camera tagging module is there.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what's really funny is
it's got 4 of the Oh, wrong one.
4 of 6. The remaining 2 will be 2.6 gigs, so it'll take a minute. So let's jump ahead because we can. The only thing I really apologize for in this this repo is so close to perfect. I look at it and cry every time because it almost always works. Except I named the folder so freaking long, and that is because the project has a long name. The project is called Intelligent Video Analytics with NVIDIA, Jetson, and Microsoft Azure. So when you clone this, you create a directory that is obviously that long. So I'm really sorry, but we want to navigate to this directory /data/mist/storage super long thing /services/deepstream/configs.
So
we will navigate to that. And we want to do this on.
Can I do that on the NAT? Can I do that? Need to do that on the Nano. I can't do it on the SSH connection, no.
You want to do it. You can do it on the SSH connection. Yes.
Yeah.
However, you want to modify it on the. Yeah, you want to modify it on the Nano. And this can be confusing because you're controlling the deployment from the Windows side, but your Deepstream workload is going to reference the configuration on the Jetson side. So we'll navigate that. There we go. We exposed the key.
Oh, well, never mind. Doesn't matter.
It's all good.
I'll blow it all the way afterwards anyway.
You won't have to fully blow it away. You could regen the key, then update your deployment, and that should work.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, so you're inside this directory. And so there are a number of configs that you can basically just use out of box. Now, the default one that your deployment used, and I'm going to show you where this is so we can change it. Go back to the Windows side. We're going to kind of go back and forth here.
I'm on the Windows one.
On the Windows side, go to your, on the Windows side, go to, what I meant to say was VS Code. Open your VS Code and let's look at the deployment template.
That one there. The one that was sent down, or the one that was generated?
The template. We'll use the template here because if you change it, you're going to want to regenerate. So if you scroll, or if you look here, you'll notice it says like working directory. And it's the same directory we were just looking at.
Yep.
And if you scroll up a little higher, so it's going to reference those configs. If you scroll up a little higher, you'll see that it says, see where it says entry point. You remember last week when we were messing with Deepstream and we were like Deepstream test 5 app -c name of file. So in this case, it's using dsconfig -custom vision AI.txt. So this thing is ready to use a custom vision AI model. In fact, it is using a custom vision AI model that I trained. And I have no idea how well it's going to work on you. It's going to do people, dogs, cats, and vehicles. I have no idea. Seriously, I have no idea. If we don't touch this, you are ready to swap in a new custom vision AI model, which looking at the time, I don't know that we're going to really be able to get to that. We could. If you've already built a model, we could totally do it. But if you look at that, this is the thing that you would change. Let's say like you go, well, Paul, I don't like your model. I want to use YOLO v3 tiny. If you change that to dsconfig -YOLO v3 tiny, redeploy, this device will wake up and use the YOLO v3 tiny config.
Cool.
These are your areas of customization. And so like what you're actually sitting on right now is pretty powerful because you can change the model to whatever you want. You can also change the cameras and all that thing, that sort of thing that it uses to look at whatever you want. So what we'll do here is I want to make sure that I leave you with you connecting to a camera source that you want to be connected to and that this stuff just works. So that'll be our goal for today. I think we can do that in the next 25 minutes.
Faster.
Back on the Windows side, go ahead and open in your terminal that you had your SSH session. Go ahead and open, since we know that it's using the custom vision config, go ahead and do a nano dsconfig -custom vision.
Sorry, Nano DS config.
And tab complete is lifesaver when I'm dealing with this giant directory. I so apologize for this whole name. Sudo, yeah.
DS.
Capital D. And yeah, tab complete it. Should get you most of the way there. Capital C. And now you'll see here that what this is going to connect to is a stream of Big Buck Bunny, which is the only reliable 24/7 publicly accessible RTSP stream on the entire internet.
Yes. I've used it many times to prove the fact that my tech is working and it's something else. It's awesome.
Because every now and again, you know, someone goes, well, let me just go find an RTSP feed. The answer is Big Buck Bunny, and just deal with it. Accept it. You know, I was on a project one time, and my boss was like, walked in the office, was like, what are you doing watching Pixar movies? And I'm like, I've been testing that this thing works. Because there is no RTS. We have a customer that wanted us to connect to their cameras, and it's like, we don't have a camera, so this is the way to do it. So just know that. If there's anything you learned today, that's the only. And I'll challenge you. Go find another one. It won't be live. It might work today. It won't work tomorrow. That's the only one that always works. You'll see sort of how this works from a perspective of what we did last week, right? Like you're setting sources, you're connecting to your device, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'd like to do at some point is change this so that we use the custom vision model, but with your USB camera. And that is something I don't think we talk about in the repo. So I'm going to, shouldn't be hard to figure out, but yeah, I don't think it's something we talk about in the repo because we're going to have to mount your camera device into the container for your USB cam to work. I don't think we talk about it. Let me just double check here. Looking like, at any point do we say USB camera? I don't think so.
Can't see that.
I don't think so.
It's talking about really don't think restarting the Stream SDK, monitoring the logs, and then that's it.
So I'll tell you something that's not in the documentation in order to get this all to work. So let's first wait for this to wake up and work with Big Buck Bunny, which, by the way, it's going to be sporadic. People might be wondering, like, well, why did you do that? Because I want you, the end user, to spit out a deployment that shows you something. That doesn't mean that the model makes any sense on these images. And I guess it hasn't started yet because we'd see it on your screen. So let's see, what is the status of, let's go back to your Docker, watch Docker images. I just want to see what's been pulled so far.
It's seems to have locked up.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe it's starting. Okay.
They're all there. Oh no, it's missing the large one, isn't it? The 2 gig one.
So here's a cool trick. If you ever want to see like what its actual progress is downloading it, if you do sudo Control C and then do sudo docker space pool, and what are we using here? We'll look at the deployment. I'll tell you what it is. Is if you issue an explicit Docker pool, it won't like stop the currently running one. It'll jump into the currently running one and show you its current status. It's kind of a cool trick. I do it all the time when I'm like.
Do you mean pool as in PULL or pool as in swimming pool?
PULL. No problem. Pool as in pool with taffy. And you will do space NVCR.io, so that's NVIDIA container registry.io /NVIDIA /deepstream dash the letter L, the number 4, the letter T, L4T, Linux Fortegra, colon
latest probably
5.0. Oh no, we're version locked. We're version locked here. Dash 20.07. Dash 20.07 dash IoT, and hit enter, and that'll legit tell us where that thing is and or why it's not pulling it. At least it should. Now, normally, if we were to just let this run, we'd see. So you can see, like, hey, it's already pulled. Oh, hey, it's ready. Okay, why isn't it running?
Maybe it just finished. Have a look.
That's perfect timing. Yeah.
Yep, it did. Middle.
Okay.
Ish.
Docker sudo docker ps-a. Let's see that it's healthy and running. Aha! It did. It literally just finished because it's showing up 19 seconds. So
yeah.
You're going to see something on your screen here in just a minute. If you really want, another good one to do is docker logs-f NVidia DeepStream SDK. You can see how it's spelled there, capital N. Oh, you know what's cool about the latest version of Docker? It can tab complete container names. So if you just type capital N tab, it should auto-complete it.
So capital
N and then tab.
I think you can use the
no,
the container. You could use the container ID as well, can't you? But
yes, that's also subject to change. But is that really not working?
Doesn't work.
Works on all mine. That's weird. Yeah, how rude. Okay. Okay, well, you got to sadly spell that out. And
which one are we doing? Sorry.
NVIDIA DeepStream SDK. You can actually copy paste it there. Yeah, the top one.
I can wrong mouse.
Where's that mouse not moving?
I know the struggle.
Oh,
all too well.
The container name. So it's like in the command column almost.
The user bin. Oh, okay, yeah.
No, down. There, set that up. It's like terrible Saturday morning TV when you were a kid. That's it.
That one.
That one, yeah. Copy. See if this works. Sometimes you got to right click to do that, or yeah, that'll work.
I did that, but no, didn't like it. You know what?
Just type it.
I swear it can tab complete these things. I don't know why it's not, but okay.
No.
I would have thought we'd see something on your screen by now. It might still be generating.
Oh, that's bad.
Could not get the EGL connection. This is that :1:0 thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Go back to your deployment and change that :1 to a :0.
And that's in the BS code, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, the other thing is you might have to reboot after setting X host. You might.
Okay, so
you might, yeah.
Yep, not going to do us any harm.
No, we can do both at the same time. Go back to your deployment configuration and let's get ready to change that from a 1 to a 0.
The template or because you got to rebuild it, haven't you? Yeah.
Yes.
See if I can find it first. That one there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
:0. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see if this just works, which it might. I'm a little skeptical that that's the case. And I don't know why this doesn't always work, or why the number isn't always what you expect it to be. It's really odd. If I have one downstairs, I swear it's always device 0. It just doesn't matter what I connect it to. But I just find this is a weird.
I don't know if it's the way you've got this hooked up, maybe because it's going through a capture card and everything. I don't know whether or not it's something to do that, but
That's part of my suspicion, for sure. For sure, yeah.
It should just be an HDMI source. I mean, the NVIDIA shouldn't know the difference, really. It just thinks it's plugged into a monitor, but.
And you should be able to, yeah, Docker ps-a should, or that'll work, yeah.
So the pseudo thing didn't work either. Nope, it doesn't like it.
Is there a time on
that? But has it restarted yet? Is the question.
That's what I'm thinking.
You can also do Docker restart NVIDIA DeepStream SDK.
Is there any point doing that? It's just restarted the whole thing.
Just restart the container, and then we know that its next execution. I have a feeling we need to change this to :0, but why?
Is it capital?
You've spelt it wrong. There's a missing I after the D.
Capital V too.
Is it?
There's capital.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks small over here for some reason.
Is it capital S again? Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
Right? Yes, capital S and then capital SDK.
DeepStream capital SDK. Yeah, I put IoT on the end of it for some reason.
Just while you're doing this, by the way, tonight we've got Knots IoT and we've got Andrei Podnosov talking about Azure Digital Twins from 6:30 BST. If you go across to Meetup and find Knots IoT, then you'll be able to sign up for that there. Plug.
All right. Kick off your logs again. Oh no, what happened to my screen? I hope y'all can see me and hear me.
Yeah, I can see you. Yep.
Okay, my monitors both just blacked out. Okay.
Oh.
All right. I assume that we need to change that to :0. Let's try that.
Is that the same error? A create element. This is a different error. Multi-source bin failed.
Scroll up. And those logs.
EGL display. Is that the old?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah. No, this is after I've typed the commands.
That 242 is a while back, though, isn't it?
Like we can blow away your logs. Instead of doing Docker restart, do Docker rm-f. That way we only have the full logs of this last run. I should have said that the first time. Docker rm-f and then NVIDIA DeepStream SDK.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know what. Oh, good. I'm glad that didn't kill everything. Does that get rid of the log, or does that get rid of the container?
Oh, you missed A. That gets rid of the whole container.
Right. Isn't this the 2 gig one?
But it will also blow away the log.
Right.
So any logs that we get from henceforth will be this singular run. Yeah.
Yep.
So now go back to your Docker logs-f. Let's see what happens here. And by the way, there is a way we can bail out and always get you some video on the screen. We can always use the frame buffer if this X11 stuff continues to cause us trouble. Okay, model has been generated.
I would have cached that image, wouldn't it? And recreated it from the cache, I guess, rather than pulling it down again.
Right. The Onyx model should be cached as well. I don't know why that's taking so long, but we'll give that a minute. Yeah, that regen should not be taking as long as it is, but that's okay. And if this doesn't work, we'll just change it to, instead of outputting on the EGL, to frame buffer, and then maybe you and I offline can fix this after the show and let people know what we do. But I'm pretty sure once we change that number to 0, it will just work.
Let's give it a go, shall we?
Oh. Yeah, we can keep this parked. Yeah, while that generates, and yeah, let's go ahead and change that to a 0. And not apply it just yet. We'll apply it momentarily. We'll let this one finish. :0, generate it, but we will not deploy it. Make absolutely sure we control est on that.
We did, yes.
Okay. So I make that mistake all the freaking time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Snap.
And
just to
I would even double check that whatever it generated, actually has this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Let's head back to the Nano and watch what's going on there. Yeah, that does seem like it's parked a little bit.
Yeah, it's locked up because I'm hitting the keyboard. Not much is happening.
So what it's doing right now, that whole step that you see there, is it's doing the conversion of the Cafe model to a TensorRT engine engine model. So it's optimizing essentially to run on the Jetson. And this is like it's a hit that you're going to take every time, because we did that Docker rm-f. We're going to take that hit every time it has to regen that model. But I wonder if we made it this far in your previous logs. I don't remember this. That's why I'm kind of hopeful.
We didn't get this far, no.
Okay. And this can take up to, I don't know, 5 minutes. But it is a one-time hit thing. It'll get cached on subsequent runs.
So these Onyx models we can make using the Azure like cognitive services and all the stuff there, can't we? So we can train our own model in Azure, create an Onyx model, pull it down onto the Nano, and run it there, can't we? And that's the whole idea.
It's almost that easy, yes.
Yeah.
We crack open a little bit on terms of how and why that works. The short version is what they dump out of cognitive services is technically a YOLO v3 tiny model in Onyx format. And so what we do is we create a custom YOLO parser that can convert that Onyx file into TRT, and then that runs on the device. So it's a little complex. It's not like we're just like spitting this Onyx file out and that just works. In this case, we are spitting that out using a custom parser that then translates it. It's explained in explicit detail in the module. It made sense when I wrote it. I'm not going to say that I necessarily understand it to that level today. Especially when you look at the YOLO parser itself, it's kind of crazy what's going on there. All right, device. Let's see. What are you doing? Should wake up any moment now.
Yeah, even the mouse is erratic. Let's say it's busy doing something.
Yeah. And this is the container. This is work happening in the container to convert this.
Come on.
The beauty of any live show.
Well, see, I'm nervous because I feel like we have like a 5-minute countdown. Like we have to get this working in 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, if we can't, then we can just leave it and then we can carry on next week with or without you, Paul.
I'm coming back next week, gentlemen.
Yeah. You've got another good excuse to come back.
Yeah, the mouse is completely yeah. The
I'm all for it. Yeah, this stuff is fun. It's fun. You know, Pete, I guess part of the reason why I was hesitant to sign up again is I didn't know if I was going to go out of town this week or next week. And now I know that I'm not. So
well, there we are then. Why not? Oh, is it a personal reason?
Well, that would be fun too, Pete. I'd love to tune in from another state. Maybe I can.
You can do that.
I want to go visit some family members, and I was hoping to work from their homes, if you will. And I'm like halfway nervous about it because it's like, well, what can we do? We can do this.
Yeah.
Easily.
I did it from Seattle.
Yeah. With the world's tiniest keyboard and mouse.
I can post you my keyboard. I've got it here. I can post it over to you if you need it. It's
Cliff's the pioneer here of like, yeah, you don't have to live stream from home. You can live stream from anywhere.
Live stream from anywhere. I do it all the time. I do meetups and talks from anywhere in the world as well. So
is that thing still really frozen? Like you can't Control C on that window? That is...
Control C, Control X.
No, it's done something.
Don't stop it. Don't stop it now.
Doing something. Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Now it's gone. Oh, no. Are we going to get an image?
It's working. Hold on. It's working right now.
How about that for
2.5 minutes to go. We know how to cut it fine, don't we?
I think that the trick is that you do need to reboot after you set X host. So it thinks that's a person right now. The green box is a person.
I look a bit like that.
And this is literally the model. I don't care telling you all this. This is the one I use in my security system at home. So it finds the dog, cat, or it is at least a version of that. I'm not saying it's the latest one, but it is a version of it. So dog, cats, people, and vehicles. So it's doing something. And what you should extract from this process is that, hey, it's working on an RTSP stream.
Yeah.
Full stop. So what you would ideally want to do here, Cliff, is get an RTSP camera by next week. But if we did want to use a USB cam, there's only two things that we need to do. That is modify the deep stream config to use a V4L Linux device like we did last time, where you plug it in, you figure out which camera ID it is. But then you also have to add, and I'll send this to you offline because I think you can get this set up. Because we're going to have to sign off in 2 minutes. I'll send you a link. You do need to expose the device to Docker, and that is using a device entry. I'll paste you an example of what that looks like.
Well, I can get an RTSP camera. That's not a problem. I could grab one of those if that's going to be better.
Any excuse to buy kit.
Any excuse to buy tech. That's me. But also, I want to get some for around the house anyway, and I'm thinking this would be kind of cool to set up for around the house. So I might sort of research and get some half decent cameras for around the house.
I prefer it. Be completely honest with you. Like the RTSP versus a USB cam, totally prefer it because you can put an RTSP cam anywhere.
It just needs power, doesn't it?
Do anything.
Yeah. Exactly.
If
anyone's got any recommendations for a decent camera for around the house for using for security, then yeah.
Yeah, well, ask Johnny Chips.
Recommended on this live stream. The company got bought out like shortly after we recorded it. Like, well, they don't. You can still buy their cameras though, and they still work. It's I use Foscam. And the other weird thing about that, I did not know this. Foscam's headquarters is like right up the street from me. That's not why. It's no affinity. They're literally the cheapest working cameras. And I think they actually got rebranded, so they're called Amcrest now. So I would totally suggest those. I don't know how ebay.co.uk is, but here in the US, you get a good RTSP camera for about $30.
Yeah.
Johnny Chips bought some and recommended. I forget which ones they were, but we'll just drop him a Slack message and ask. And the two that he bought, they definitely work. So
yeah, cool. We've got it running, and our time is up.
All right, gents.
It's all gone quiet. We're watching the cartoon, aren't we? That's what
the poor butterfly. I was looking at the poor butterfly. I forgot about that bit.
I've run this on a massive video wall. to prove the video wall's working and the tech that we had on the video wall. But to see this in like, meters wide and high on a video wall is
true.
And everyone in the office building is like, what are they doing?
Watching.
But we should thank the fine folks of Big Buck Bunny. This episode of IoTeaLive is brought to you by
yeah, definitely,
for all your open source needs
and
whenever you need a reliable stream. Big Buck Bunny.
All right, well, that's a really convenient point to stop. So thank you to everybody who came along and watched this. Obviously, if you're watching this at a later time, then you can go back, obviously, and watch the first version of this, which is split into 2 bits, thanks to my dodgy internet last week. But next week, hopefully, same time, 2 p.m. BST, we will continue on and finish off Module 2. And continue.
Yeah, we're done with Module 2. We're on to Module 3 now.
Oh, fair enough. Then we will
3 now. Yeah.
We will do that, and as Paul says, it's a little bit more chill from that point on. Less setup work involved and less scratchings of heads, hopefully, and a bit more model training and stuff like that.
And hopefully, I won't be doing it all from a mobile data connection. Hopefully, Virgin Media would have sorted their act out and gave me internet back.
Yeah.
So my wife's just got them to get the kids from school. They're not going to be happy bunnies when they get home.
Not on this
internet in the house. Yeah. What do you mean the internet's broken? Dad, fix it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've been invited for a birthday meal at 12:30 next Thursday, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get back in time.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And I'm adaptable.
Happy days. That's fine. Cool. All right. So thank you very much. Cool. And we'll see you again. Don't forget, Knots IoT tonight at 6:30 BST as well. That'll be good. And Tuesday night, of course, we'll do our regular IoTeaLive show then as well. So 9 p.m. BST for that one. So all going on. And we'll catch you all again soon. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone.